Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Becca Jo, aka the Makeup Tax Lady. Today we are playing with, talking about, having fun with Sydney Grace. This week, the week that this video goes up, is Sydney Grace's 2025 Christmas in July sale. I have many of their products, and I definitely have my eye on a few to pick up during the sale. So I just wanted to enjoy and play with those products with you on camera today. I'm also wearing a palette dupe. I have been finding a lot of inspiration in a particular brand's new eyeshadow palette. And you probably know by now, I'm sure it's in the title and on the thumbnail, but the palette that we are duping today with single eyeshadows that include Sydney Grace, and there's also shadows in there from existing palettes that I have in my collection. I am loving this palette dupe. This is the first look that I've done with it today, but I plan to continue to do more. Let me know what you'd like to see me do with my palette dupe. If you picked up the original palette, what your thoughts are with it, all of the above. I'd love to chat with you. Just a note, if you hear background noise or you're gonna notice that there's some lighting and setting changes, things are a little bit different today and there is background sound and life is happening all around me and I'm loving it. So thank you so much for being here for today's video. Let's have some fun. Let us get into this look, starting off with a bare face, just skincare on. And I'm going to start with my liquid concealer because we're using powder foundation today. So this is my number 7 Lift and Illuminate Serum Concealer. And I don't want to go too crazy or heavy-handed with concealer. I've really been in a light coverage kind of world lately and I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely enjoying it. So I gave that product, I don't know, 30 seconds or so to sit on my skin and then blended it out with my Sydney Grace brush. This is one of many. I believe that I have all of their brushes. Highly recommend. I love their brushes. There are some that I go back to all the time, both their face brushes and their eye brushes. I want to go in with the Sydney Grace Powder Mineral Foundation for my foundation today. This is one of their samples. It's an itty bitty little plastic jar, and these are super convenient that you can order a pack with several in there. I think it's like 5 or 6 shades to kind of determine which shade you should order in the full size. So I picked up, I believe, all of their samples. I did a swatch video of all of the samples that I purchased during the Sydney Grace Christmas in July sale last year, 2024. And I have been going off of the sample sizes, but I'm really excited to pick up a full real size foundation this year with the sale. I am using a Sierra Martin brush. It just happens to be the right size to dip into the little sample. And it's hard to use this on like a day-to-day. So that's part of why I'm looking forward to getting the full size of the foundation, because I think it'll be much easier to work with on like a day-to-day basis. So I'm just gonna go into my skin and kind of buff this foundation into my skin along with my cat. I think she's gonna join me for this one. So this mineral foundation sample is the shade BU5, and this is a good match for me. I think that they have several shades in the line that would work well for me. Their B is for blue undertone, and then RU is for red undertone. And I think they consider the red undertone a warm undertone, and then BU would be a cool undertone. And I think I can get away with a couple in either the BU or the RU. So I am just happy to hopefully add some of those to my collection. I do own several of the Sydney Grace cream blushes, cream highlighters, and cream bronzers, and I very much enjoy all of them. I think that they are beautiful. Because I'm wearing a powder foundation, I am going to use powder, blush, and bronzer today. Also, before we move on to those things, I want to add some moisture to my lips. So this is the Sydney Grace lip topper in the shade Trisha. I so very much love and enjoy both the lip toppers and lip creams from the brand. They are so moisturizing. They last well throughout the day. I have had a couple that started to smell funky, ones that I was using regularly. So I have tossed those and I look forward to replacing them in this year's Sydney Grace Christmas in July sale. Apologies for the change in setting. So I have some beautiful daylight right now. So I'm sitting in front of my window instead of my usual like makeup station. And the system that I have to set up my phone is not sticking to the window. So we're trying this. It's now sticking to my mirror, which means that I don't have like full access to the mirror, whatever. My apologies. We're just having fun with our makeup today. I do want to real quickly set my under eyes where I had put that concealer. I don't think it looks terrible by any means, and I'm going to use ever so little. I'm going to go in with my RCMA no color powder, but I highly recommend the Sydney Grace Cloud 9 setting powder. I believe they just have it in like a translucent shade now. I have it in the shade Fair. I have used entirely, it took a long time, as it's taking me a long time to get through my RCMA powder, which is fine. Took me a long time to get through it, but I have used up one entire jar of the Sydney Grace Cloud 9 setting powder. It is beautiful. It is unfragranced. It is fantastic. Love it. Highly recommend. This one and the previous one that I had are in the shade Fair because they used to do three different depths, different shades. And so now they just do the translucent, which I imagine is just as beautiful. That was another Sydney Grace brush that I used for my setting powder under my eyes. I did not intentionally pull my Sydney Grace brushes to use for this video, but they're fantastic and I love them and I use them every day, and that's why they ended up over here with me. For powder bronzer, I have two options from Sydney Grace. One is in their Luminous Light palette, and this is in the shade Light. This bronzer shade is beautiful. It's a matte shade, Starlight, and it's great. It's definitely on the warmer side, but I don't know that I would qualify it as like a warm orange. It's maybe a bit warm, almost in a yellow undertone, but I think it looks really pretty. I don't want that to intimidate you. I like it. I generally reach for it more in the summertime. I've found for myself in the wintertime that I like a cool leaning bronzer more, something with maybe a little bit more rosiness to it. But this is still really pretty. You're about to see me apply it. So the shade Starlight comes in the Luminous Light palette. This is a matte bronzer. I have a like shimmery bronzer that's basically the same color. I guess now that I'm holding it up, maybe it's a little bit lighter. This is the shade Butter Cookie. I really enjoy this one, and I feel like using this one today. Just for reference, I store this Butter Cookie bronzer in this large palette. Everything in here, except for this smaller pan in the center, is a powder, blush, or highlighter, also from Sydney Grace. And in case you were worried, I have a second palette with the blushes and highlighters that I have from Sydney Grace because they're all beautiful and I highly recommend them. I'm not one that usually goes super heavy with my bronzer. This is generally the amount of bronze that I would go for on the day-to-day. Could go a little bit heavier for a weekend or special occasion. But just so you can see, so again, no bronzer on this side and bronzer on this side. I do feel like it looks very natural in person as well as hopefully online. This brush is not a Sydney Grace brush. This is an e.l.f. Flawless Face Brush. I have had this for about a century and I have re-glued it back together. It is my favorite bronzer brush and I have found nothing of its equivalence to replace it. I would not be opposed to replacing it, but there's also nothing wrong with it. It's rewashed several times. It's a great brush, not a Sydney Grace brush. So this palette, this was the first palette that I showed, and here's the bronzer that I just used. This has generally more of my like warm toned or tanner, tan kind of toned blushes. And I think I want to reach into something a little bit more cool toned today. One thing that I have come to learn about Sydney Grace blushes, which, like I said, I absolutely love them. They're beautiful. They're very much such a positive for so many people. So I don't want it to come across like a negative, but they definitely are neutral, everyday, soft types of colors. I think that they are great for everyday blushes. I have been into a little bit punchier blushes lately, but that's absolutely no discount to the value and the beauty of these. I go through phases with my blushes. I was in a neutral blush phase probably a year ago where I couldn't get enough of a neutral blush, and now I want like a bold or poppy blush color. Anyway, these we will use today because I love them and they're beautiful. I want to start by dipping into the shade here in the top center, which is the shade Time Stops. It's just a really pretty, soft, mauve-y, pinky blush tone. So we are gonna add some of this. And these are definitely pigmented, so I would start with less and then you can always add more. I find that they blend out beautifully. This is Sydney Grace angled brush that I'm using to apply. I want to add a little blush topper. So this is the shade Secret here on the top, and then this is the shade Paris Skies. Paris Skies is like definitely a cool toned, like mauve-y, almost lavender kind of blush, and then Secret is definitely like a real pink. I think I'm gonna go back and forth between the two because I can't decide. I have picked up just a splash of both of those on my brush and very gently adding to the top of my cheek. Hopefully you can see we've got just a little bit of sheen there. So pretty. I think if you go in with a heavier hand, these could look metallic, and that's not what I'm going for. So just keep that in mind. Again, you can always start with less and add more later. Let's do some brows. This is my Sydney Grace Mad For You brow palette in the shade Blonde. I have talked about this several times on my channel before. I think this is so smart and I love it. And last I knew, you could like custom make your own palette too. I think these are genius also for travel because they double as a beautiful neutral eyeshadow. So highly recommend checking these out. They also have their brow pomades, and I may pick up a new one of those. Mine has dried out quite a bit. It's been a year at least since I picked that one up, so I'm not surprised. The powder eyeshadows, however, are doing great. Speaking of dried out, this is Sydney Grace Stronghold Brow Gel, and I have used every ounce of this. I don't know that there's enough left. Ooh, no. Nope, nothing left in there. Let me grab my other brow gel. I'll do that. I did also add eyeshadow primer to my lids, so we will move on to eyeshadow here in just a second. I am so excited. I have duped a palette for you today, and partly in the theme, of course, of this being like a Sydney Grace video. Sydney Grace does beautiful eyeshadows, especially single eyeshadows, which are the same formula as are in their palettes. So if there are shades that you are interested in that are also well priced, or palettes that you're interested in, whatever it may be, I highly recommend. Quality is there. So in the theme of Sydney Grace being especially a single eyeshadow brand, why not do our own palette? BYOP, I have built my own palette. It's a dupe palette of, you already know this by now, but it's a dupe palette of a palette that I keep seeing all over the internet and I'm really inspired by, and I think it's a beautiful palette. I have not forked over the cash for it just yet. I'm hoping to find it later in the year on a sale. But in the meantime, I spent far too long, probably 2 or 3 hours swatching my eyeshadows to come up with a dupe palette, and I am really excited about it, and I plan to continue using these over the coming couple of weeks. So let me know if you'd like to see like multiple looks with my dupe palette or whatever. I have found for myself that while I enjoy and appreciate the occasional warm tone, at least for right now, I am just in a season of cool tones and loving cool tones. So I don't want to write off warm tone eyeshadow, but okay, I'm just looking at this palette and I need to share it with you. So we're going to go through what each of these are. These are not all Sydney Grace shadows in here. I will share with you what they are, but here is the palette. Oh my, so this is a dupe, my dupe, of the Bella Beaute Bar Ocean Jewel palette. I think this palette is so pretty. It is so inspiring to me. It does kind of remind me of the Glaminatrix Nocturnal palette, which I have and I love. Something about this like limey green and then some of these blues and the pink. And that palette is one that I also find super inspirational. This, it being cool tones, but there's a splash of neon. We've got like purpley pinks, we've got like teals and blues, we've got a few neutrals on the side. I am so excited. Okay, let me walk you through what each of these shades are. I will also pop up a short video of my swatches of this palette so that you can see what they look like swatched out on my arm. Let's talk through what each of these are, and then we can do our look. So up here in the place of Heart of the Ocean, I have a shadow from Sydney Grace called Chosen One. This is one of their pressed pigment shades. This matte for the shadow Submerged is the Sydney Grace from the Tropicolor palette, the shade Negril. This matte, I went with a matte. This shade is, I believe, a matte with sparkle in the Bella Beaute Bar palette. So this one here is a matte. So this is the shade Jellyfish. And I went with Ensley Rain Cosmic Dreamer. The shade is Neptune. Here in the original palette, this is Shipwreck. In my palette, this is Ensley Rain Palladian from the Lands of Enchantment palette. Last one over here, this is for the shade Conch. This is Sydney Grace's single shadow Storybook Ending. Starting in our second row, this deep purple matte. This is the shade Quahog in the Bella Beaute Bar palette. Here in my palette, this is from the Lands of Enchantment Ensley Rain palette, the shade Utopia. Next here, this is for the shade Colorful Moon. We have Ensley Rain Cold Moon. The shade is Snow Fairies. This beautiful blue shimmer instead of Nacre. We have Ensley Rain from the Strawberry Moon palette, the shade Summer Solstice. Using my other hand here, this shimmer, instead of Shark's Eye, we have Ensley Rain from the Twisted Tea Party palette, the shade Bonkers. Over here, in place of the shade Tortoise, we have Sydney Grace Single Shadow in the shade Beyond. Here on the third row, this beautiful pinky shimmer, the shade Abalone. This is from the Ensley Rain Glow palette. This is the shade Create. Next, in place of Fleur de la Mar, we have Glaminatrix Cosmetics from the Glamorous palette. This is the shade Package. In place of the shade Sunken Treasure, I have Ensley Rain from the Strawberry Moon palette. This is the shade Lagoon. Other hand here, in place of Nautilus, I have Ensley Rain from the Flutter palette. This is Dewdrop. Last one in this row, to replace the shade Mother of Pearl. This is Ensley Rain Single in the shade Lunar Halo. Last row here, in place of Starfish, we have Kaima Cosmetics from the Frosted Fairy palette. This is the shade Elisa. To replace the shade Oyster here, we have Sydney Grace Multichrome in Ripple Effect. This blue matte at the bottom instead of Sea Glass is Ensley Rain Lands of Enchantment, the shade Lost World. Second to last here, in place of Luminescence, we have Ensley Rain from the Flourish palette. This is Petal Pop. And the last shade in the palette, instead of Sundial, this is Glaminatrix Cosmetics Into the Night, the shade Moonlight. I am certain that there are nuances in the Bella Beaute Bar palette that I have not captured in my dupe palette, but that's okay. I tried to go for what looked to me, what I could see as, especially for the special shades, as the base and the flip in various swatches that I saw online. So if it's not perfect, I am aware of that. This was so much fun for me to do. And again, I'm finding this color story so inspirational and I'm so excited to play with it. So let's get into it. To start our look, I just washed all my eyeshadow brushes and it feels so satisfying. I'm gonna dip into this Periwinkle shade down here. So this is, instead of Starfish, Kaima Cosmetics from the Frosted Fairy palette, Elisa. And I'm sorry that I'm hunched over weird again. I'm trying to see in the mirror, but this is a beautiful shade. This is the only palette, the Frosted Fairy is the only palette that I have from Kaima. I am very much watching their site. I would love to see, they have two other palettes of which I don't remember the name. I want to say one is like Skulls and Roses, and then there's another one that's neutral but not as deep. And I am watching their website to see the neutral but not as deep one show back up as in stock. The other palette is beautiful, but it's deep. It's deep for me, and I don't know that it's one that I would appreciate so much. But based on how much I've loved the Frosted Fairy palette, I am definitely considering, even though it's a neutral palette, I'm not like into neutrals so much right now, I think that that would be such a beautiful palette to have if the quality is anything like the Frosted Fairy palette. Okay, next I want to dip into this matte here. So this is Palladian from Ensley Rain Lands of Enchantment, which is in place of Shipwreck. And I'm using that same brush. This is a deep shade. I'm gonna start by tapping it kind of on the outer corner there, putting the rest of what's on the brush on the other eye so as not to go too overboard on the first eye. And now I'm just kind of going back and forth between the two, blending and creating the shape that I'm looking for. Please let me know in the comments what palettes are inspiring you lately. Is this Ocean Jewel palette one that you have been noticing, one that you find interesting? Maybe you're here more for the Sydney Grace content and looking more for neutral shadows and this is not your thing, and that's okay. Again, I think Sydney Grace's neutral leaning, generally speaking, eyeshadows are beautiful. And I go through phases, and right now is a not neutral eyeshadow phase. I don't think I said it, but this was a Sigma E27 brush. I very much enjoy this brush. I do enjoy the Sydney Grace eyeshadow brushes. Like I said earlier, I don't think I brought any over with me, so we're using other eyeshadow brushes today. This one is my Give Me Glow brush G1012, and I'm going to go back in with our Shipwreck shade and add this to the lower lash line, mostly on the outer portion, out this way. I wiped off that brush, and now I'm going to dip into, I know this is from the Flourish palette. This is Luminescence in the Bella Beaute Bar palette. I'm going to add this to the inner portion of my lower lash line. I think this is going to be a fun pop of color. And again, I'm stamping more than just blending. This shade is more of a neon shade, so it does better with a pack and blend as opposed to just going in blending. I'm dragging that down kind of low because it's fun. Why not? I want to add some glitter glue from Kyma Cosmetics onto my lids. And I think I'm just going to add it to one side and we'll do the shimmers on that side, and then I'll go to the other side off camera. So what shimmers do I want to use? So I definitely want to use our Sydney Grace multichrome. This is Ripple Effect in place of Oyster. I definitely want to use that over the majority of the lid. It has a beautiful blue purple shift to it. Oh, that's so gorgeous. And then to connect it to the outer corner, I think I'm going to go in with this shade here, which is from the Ensley Rain Twisted Tea Party palette, the shade Bonkers. This is the shade Shark's Eye in the Bella Beaute Bar palette. So starting with the glitter glue, and I will add this with the brush. Then I will add the shimmers with my finger. I'm going to go in with the shimmer shade right here. This is Mother of Pearl in the original palette, or Lunar Halo from Ensley Rain, the single shadow. And I'm going to tip into this with my brush. This is a Refer 23, just a very small pencil brush, and I'm going to add this to my inner corner and then just over a little bit of luminescence where we put that neon green. I am delighted with the way that this look is coming together. I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye, add my mascara, and I'll come back. I love even more this eye look now that the mascara is on. I don't love this mascara, but this is the Tarte Lights Camera Lashes. It's a little bitty sample size, and so I think I'll go through it faster than I would like a normal size, which is great because I'm already ready to move on, and so I probably will be switching to my next mascara pretty soon. But I I can't be bothered to have more than one open at a time as much as I can help it. That's what's on my lashes. I did throw this eyeliner in my lower waterline, not realizing that the shade name is Ocean, but this is LA Girl Shockwave. This is such a pretty like metallic blue color. Now we've got lips. Lips are the only thing left unless I add some more highlighter, which I probably will. So for lips, I'm gonna go in with my Give Me Glow lip liner. This is the shade Cupid. This is just a nice like neutral lip liner shade. I don't always wear a lip liner when I wear the lip creams from Sydney Grace that we're about to use, but I wanted to today, so we are. The lip cream that I want to wear today is the shade Charissa. This is such a beautiful go-to everyday shade. It's not super warm or super cool. It's just a nice neutral pinky shade for me, and it matches that lip liner really well. So I like that color. I think it complements the cheeks well as well. So let's go into a highlighter. I would like to use today, let's do something a little extra. This highlighter pan right here is the shade Pink Mist, and it is bold. I mean, it's basically a white with a pink shift to it. I need to grab a highlighter brush. These Sydney Grace highlighters can definitely be pigmented and be intense, so if that's what you're looking for, by all means. I'm going to use a fan brush. This is a Real Techniques fan brush because I think it's going to give me more of the pigmentation that I'm hoping for. Just a nice little soft brush onto the tops of the cheeks. I can see that. I hope you can too. If you can't, trust me, it's such a pretty splash of pink shifty, and I need to set this out so that I use it more regularly. I forgot how much I love this. Okay, here we are. Here is today's final look, playing with a lot, not everything, but a lot of my Sydney Grace products that I love. If you're curious about any particular Sydney Grace products, please ask it in the comment section below. I would love to chat with you about it down there. I have a playlist where I've talked through most, if not all, of the Sydney Grace products that I own. I definitely have a strong affection for the brand. I think that they make quality products. I think there can be differences in preferences and those sorts of things. Like I've said throughout the video, a lot of the Sydney Grace eyeshadows are on the neutral side or neutral leaning, and they're beautiful. That's just not the direction that I have been reaching for so much lately, which is totally okay. I still love their products, and I still need more excuses to use them as I need more excuses to use all of my makeup. I love the way that today's look came together. Using this multichrome on the lids, it did not need the glitter glue, by the way. I just wanted to use the glitter glue, but I think that the Sydney Grace multichromes are so beautiful and so much fun, and that's another thing that I need to continue using. I need to do more regular BYOPs. If you have thoughts or suggestions as palettes come out, I like to buy new palettes, but I don't want to. I'm not interested in buying every new indie eyeshadow palette. It's just not feasible, and it's not realistic because I don't always want a new palette. I have stuff that I love. I have beautiful single shadows, existing palettes that I love and that I've already spent my money on, and I get inspiration for new things, and I do like to buy new things. I just don't want to buy every new thing. So I find that BYOPs, build your own palettes, are a great way to bridge those two worlds because you have the quality eyeshadows that you already have, and you can make the color stories in new and invigorating ways, whether inspired by somebody's new palette or just a color story that's exciting to you and me. I also like, and this is not new, you know this if you've been to my channel before, I like that my eyeshadow palettes, and the majority of the eyeshadow palettes that I own, definitely the ones I prefer, have magnetic pans so you can take the eyeshadows out. So many of the shadows in this BYOP came from existing palettes. There's a handful of just single shadows in here, but several of them came from existing palettes that I already know and love and cherish, and I love this palette dupe, and it's going to be sticking around in my easy to reach makeup stuff for a while. Don't get me wrong, I love colorful eyeshadow. I'm not necessarily doing this bold of an eyeshadow look on the day-to-day. That's just not my world. But when I get to, I want to. And that's what today is. We are having fun with our makeup. We are talking about playing with Sydney Grace, BYOP, talking about indie makeup. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked the video, I'd love it if you'd give the video a like. Let me know what you'd like to see more from me. I have a few subscriber requests that I'm working on. I've heard you, I hear you, I want to make those. Hasn't happened yet, they're coming. If you are new to my channel, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming a subscriber. And I thank you so much for joining me for today's video, and I hope to see you in the next one.